there's an interesting parallel here to 2017, in that in 2017 the Republicans tried to pass a tax cut via reconciliation, like single party vote. They also could not afford all of their priorities into the amount of money that they had allocated for the bill. And so a lot of the popular provisions, for example, the individual income tax cuts and some of the very popular corporate tax provisions, were allowed to expire or sunset at the end of calendar 2025. Is there some strategy here? Is there a page that Democrats could potentially take from that lesson? And instead of conducting a Sophie's Choice experiment of having to pick one program over another, just set everything to terminate in 2025, along with the Republican tax cuts, which then pulls the Republicans and the Democrats to the table in 2025 for a national discussion about what our priorities should be going forward, what lives and what doesn't live going forward, which programs are extended and which programs aren't, and how do we pay for them?
Tori, that's a great question. And all of us as budgeteers know that that's one of the tricks up our sleeves all the time is using phase in and phase outs. And you're absolutely right that using the phase out can make the cost of different programs look cheaper, and then it puts pressure on future Congresses. And everybody knows that once a program is in place and people are counting on it, the pressure will be on Congress to extend it. Once you create it, it's the old adage, once you create a program in Washington, it's very hard to kill. Mm-hmm. And that logic is right. I'm not sure it'll work for every single program. I'm not sure that programs, some environmental programs, for example, on climate change, necessarily would fit into that category. But I think to the extent they're able to do that, yes, I feel quite confident that's what they will be doing. That is sort of the easiest way to slice the baby in lots of different little pieces. So
that's perhaps.
But I would just add, they're already doing that. There are a number of provisions in there which actually already, for example, the child tax credit has a phase out, and so the question is, how much more can they do that?
Then that's something to be looking for as people evaluate the cost of this legislation going forward, is whether they're relying on that strategy, and then how much this legislation really does cost.
That's right. And yes, that's right, because the fact is the bill is going to cost a lot more than CBO necessarily shows. I mean, CBO will show it reflecting that the phase outs are on the level, when we frankly know that they're not. And they also, people would need to be looking carefully at what the offsets are and how much really is offset, real offsets in terms of tax increases, as opposed to supply side economics, which is when we were in the minority and Republicans used supply side economics to claim their tax cuts paid for themselves. We called it voodoo. We called it voodoo economics, and
voodoo may be looking pretty good these days up on the hill.
they may need to use a lot of voodoo, absolutely. But I think it's going to be awfully hard. I mean, anyway. As I said, just think about the notion of taking something which is as big as 3.5 trillion. By the way, it was a lot bigger than that before. Bernie Sanders came down from, I think it was 5 trillion, and or was it 6? And then 6 trillion, and then he went down to 3.5. He didn't want to do that. Now they're being told it's being cut once again. And there may be a breaking point. There may be a point some progressives decide, irrationally, frankly, I think it would be a terrible mistake, but they may decide, you know what, it's not worth it. They may say, I'd rather just go home with nothing than take a quarter of the loaf of what I wanted. I think that would be a mistake for their constituents. They're elected, members of Congress are elected to deliver, and the fact that they're not getting everything is part of the legislative process, but we will see.